Hey, Composer Gloves here, and today I'm going to show you the 5 elements that compose every song and beat ever. I'll tell you them right now. They are, I have them written down, they are rhythm, structure, sounds, melody, and harmony. Now, melody can also be replaced with theme. So it's not the same as like a melody in the sense of harmony, because that's included with melody and harmony combined. Therefore, I will go to the more general categories of those things. So I have a beat here I'm going to show you. It's a very simple beat. There used to be vocals in this beat, but it was on my laptop, and therefore I do not have the files for that on this computer. And so this is also an unfinished beat. I didn't put in all the vocals, just some of them. So I'm going to play it for you, and I want you to listen for the different elements. So I'm going to play up through maybe like to right here. And I want you to just identify which of these elements is the strongest, because in a beat, there will be a hierarchy. These 5 elements compose every song, but each song will give different emphasis to different pieces. If you give more emphasis to, say, rhythm, then the other elements will shrink by comparison. Rhythm is now the most important element. If you give more to harmony, then rhythm, in this case, rhythm and harmony can go together pretty well. But if it's a harmonic focus, rhythm will be diminished. And so we're going to take a look at this. So go ahead, look at these carefully, and then I'm going to play this first little bit, and you tell me which of these this is.
Composing
So you get the idea. So I'm going to guess that you said, oh, this is very rhythmic. And you'd be correct. I'd agree with you. You can make cases for each one. If you said, oh, it's melodic, I could agree with you there too. There's definitely a theme. Generally, you can have a couple of these be pretty powerful, and they'll actually buoy each other up. They'll make themselves stronger. But there'll be a point of diminishing returns where when you make one bigger, not even diminishing returns, it's not returning anymore. It's not good. If I were like to get so crazy melodically, I could ruin the rhythm and things of that nature. So I want to maintain my continuity in rhythm. So I sacrifice increasing melodic content to a more complicated level because I have limited my rhythmic content. So it forms a repeating pattern. And so at one point, at the beginning, you might perceive this more as a melody. But as the beat continues, because it repeats and repeats, it becomes less of a melody and more of a rhythm. And so there's a shift that happens over time from the listener. They're going to experience this change of melody because it's new and organic and it has some movement harmonically. And then it moves into the rhythm place because it repeats so much that we're able to just classify it as basically a rhythm. So that's what's going on there. That would also be influenced by the structure. So there's a relationship here. So I'm increasing generally you can't tell if a structure is strong, usually from the first couple beats. You tell that over the length of a song. And so as the beat continues, if your structure increases in power, generally you are sacrificing melodic and rhythmic development. Now you guys could give me like examples where a master went at it and maybe found some degree of success doing this. But as a general rule, you are going to be diminishing things as you do this. So here I've got a rhythmic dun 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 dun. So we have the da 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 da, and it's unfair because I'm not including the dynamics, which are definitely part of the rhythm. But you see here that idea is clearly there. So we have our rhythm set up. I like this beat because it has these 5 elements pretty well laid out in an obvious way. So our next one is the structure. So I repeat this and repeat this, but I have I've even labeled my structure. Sometimes I do this just to help myself. So I have an intro, verse, and then I hit my hook. And then I stopped labeling things because once I hit my hook, I knew I wanted to repeat and have a bridge and do things. So I stopped labeling it. But you see, I'm setting this part up. The intro is the part where I oftentimes will introduce just the thing that's going to form the base, depending on how complicated I want to be. If I'm going to be more of a songwriter, type deal, then I might not have such a repetitive thing going on. But anyways, you see, bring in the drum loops, and then I'll play from here to the hook to show you the structural pattern, because these elements set up the bass. These are the sounds. They set up the sound, the timbral palette, so that when I hit the hook, I can throw at you a completely different drum set, but you hang on because the sounds are so powerfully imprinted in your mind by this point. And also the rhythm and the rhythm and the what was the melody but is now mostly rhythm. They provide anchors to allow me to shift the importance of my song. So if we had like a map with these things on there, you'd see like one morph, but you would be held on by this. It's like rotating around. I don't know. I have this weird visual in my head, but you get the idea. So here we go. If I can hit play. So that's the hook, and you can see that I changed the rhythm, but it very much outlines the same downbeats, and so that's why it works so well. So the rhythm changes, but an overarching importance of beats, that rhythm stays the same. And then we change our sounds quite a bit. Now, if you don't have sub bass support on your speakers, maybe you're listening to this on your phone, that probably didn't sound too incredible because it's got a lot of sub in it, so it won't come through on your phone. The other thing here is I introduced an element of harmony, and it's emphasizing elements that I've hinted at over here. And so I'm using these elements intuitively. When you're being creative and you find something that works, chances are 9 times out of 10 that you are just simply shifting the structure around in a way that's pleasing. I bet you if you were working and you come up with a melody you really like, you're changing rhythm, you're developing some sort of a melodic structure with the harmony. Like, these things are interrelated. You cannot change one without affecting all the others. And so when you find something you like, you found a good balance of these elements. Unless you're weird and you're writing atonal stuff, in which case you almost seek the destruction of these elements, which has become very popular in the 20th century. So we get through this section right here, and then check it out. So that's the hook there. I have another hook. We can tell because I have the drum loop here. And I introduce another drum loop right here that I think is pretty cool. And it just, because if I repeat it again, that structure is okay. A repeating structure has familiarity, but it's boring and expected. So I need to enhance my structure. I'm going to add a little bit of new things just to keep it interesting. I'm not seeking to write the most complex thing in the world. And I took sort of the easy way out here, but I thought it sounded really cool, and that's what I care about. So the bass is like a total disaster zone. Like, it's like different notes and stuff, but I thought it sounded cool. So this is what's going on, and that's what I use to enhance my structure. So the sounds you see, the sounds stay relatively consistent. Sounds can be a trickier thing to do in more complex genres where sound design is an integral part of it, such as dubstep. That one, you could have a variety of sounds. Complextro is a great example. Things like techno, jungle, most hip-hop beats. Now, hip-hop beats are a different story entirely sometimes because they can be sampling songs, and so they can have radical changes in sound, but usually that comes from the palette from which you select them. Like, you choose a song you're going to sample, and you find your sounds there. It's not like a huge hunt to make the sound. So it's sort of it's just a different way of going about things. We'll look at stuff like that later on. But anyways, you get the idea. All I want to do is point out structure and how this influences it, the rhythm, the sounds I picked. Now, if you're really curious about these sounds, I'm using Contact, and at the time I used a separate Contact for like everything. But here it is, and it's the viola solo. That's the one I'm using. And there's a couple other Contacts too, if we come later on. But I think they're just the drums and so forth. Like, this one is Contact using the drums. And oh, this must be a separated kick. Yeah, that's the kick. and so forth. So that's something I do. I'll just clone the contact and so I can have a separate out for the kick. Nowadays, I'll do it in one contact and just use a multiple out, but that's fine. So you see, those are the sounds. So I stuck with sounds I was already familiar with. Familiarizing yourself with the sounds in your library and your capabilities is really important. If you're not an active sound designer, if you're not someone who takes the time to learn how synthesis works, then this could be a really important topic for you. So a lot of people know Nexus, hip hop producers, they'll just know Nexus like crazy good. Like they'll know where all the sounds are. That way they can just go and get the sound instead of hunting. But you should take time to familiarize yourself with your sound sets. So in the case of Contact, because I am so into synthesis, I tend to do less of this, but I do get sucked in occasionally. I think everyone does. You just pull out patches and play around with them. It's like it. Just make sure you do that. If you buy sample packs, open up your sample packs and get familiar with what sounds you can get out of where. Like if I'm going to go for hip hop, I have different folders I would go to than if I were to do like, I'll go to Leviathan for my EDM type stuff. I particularly like the Wicked Drum Hits pack. It's somewhere in here. But I have other ones, like I have like guitar samples and a whole bunch of stuff in there. These came from that pack. And at the time, it was a brand new set to me. So I was having just too much fun messing with these sounds. These are also valuable because drum loops, if you've never made drum loops of this nature before, they can give you some insight, especially when you work with them. You find out how you'd want to use them. And then I can go in and grab some 808s, some subs or whatever, and some snares and try to reconstruct sounds similar to that. So I encourage using drum loops because it increases your palette for sound. And then later on, I encourage you to go in and construct your own drum loops. But there's just different focuses on a creative style. So it's all up to you. The thing about working with this is now I have two kicks going at the same time in a low frequencies, which is problematic. How am I going to mix and master that? In this case, I just kind of ignored it and let the thing happen as it did because I thought it sounded kind of cool. So, but if I were to play this over a very large system, I bet I would discover some pretty severe issues that I may consider resolving, or it may stay cool. I could check it out. So the important thing would be, in this case, to do a reference mix, to just go and listen to my mix on, or not a reference mix and comparing it to someone else's, going and listening on a very large system. That would fix that. So that's rhythm, sounds, melody, and theme. So I have theme written next to it because a lot of you probably combine these into the same category. Melody is harmony. That's not the same category at all. They're different. They are intertwined in a very unified kind of way, but they're still separate categories. So when I say melody theme, I'm talking about like content that serves as the intellectual driving force. So here, if I wanted this to be background music, I would leave an absence of melody and theme because that way when people are talking over it, their words will act as a kind of melody. Granted, it's not what most people would consider a musical melody. I could be talking about math or science or philosophy or something, but it leaves a hole in the music in a way that allows something to move you. It allows you to say, it doesn't distract your brain from what's going on. All this other stuff can be pretty well classified as a sort of background rhythm section stuff. So, and we'll talk about rhythm section stuff again in later beats. You'll see tons of examples of it. Like this is a great example. So there used to be words here and that would have directed your attention. So now this could actually work quite well if you put it in a production, in a movie and did an EQ cut where you want your voice to be. That's typically how they do it. You submit full masters to the publishers and then they'll go ahead and just edit your stuff or just turn it down. They usually don't care if your beat has a hole in it or not for the voice. Found that out. So we have our structure, our sounds, our melody and theme. So again, the theme, just the main idea that keeps your attention and is the most engaging portion of the music. We could get into the music theory definition of melody, which we talked about in the MIDI music theory series. But here we're just talking about general composition, things on a sort of a larger scale. And then we're going to talk about harmony right now. So harmony, as you can see, since melody is sort of connected with this attention grabber of the piece, in a way, it's not the total attention grabber. These are the sounds and structure and rhythm could do that too, but you get the idea. The harmony, what it is just the construct that you use to build your piece. So it's just the notes. Just think of the notes. So if you're going to play chords, what kind of chord progression? Are you going to play broken intervals or whatnot? So in this one, I do not bring in harmonic intervals. They're all melodic intervals with stabs of harmonic intervals. So I have this stab of a chord and then melodic intervals. And the relationship that I chose here, I chose A minor, F minor. And so I'm just moving through my key and I'm obeying laws of harmony. You could choose to be, this is a really cool area. You could choose to be mysterious about your harmony and not reveal a lot of the key signature right away. It's how a lot of sad songs work. They'll start out playing some notes, leaving you guessing at the key. It's the reason why when you play an open fifth, let me get a keyboard out here. When you play an open fifth, I have not revealed to you through that fifth whether or not it is a major or minor key. And so I'm using harmony as a deterrent. Well, not a deterrent, but as a way of leaving my creative possibilities open. I could take you both ways. I could start at minor, or I could start at major. See how different those two feel? And it's because I'm being ambiguous about my key. I'm deliberately avoiding things that give away the set of notes I'm using. This is all music theory stuff. And so harmony is a super big deal. So if I wanted to be like, maybe I'm making something sad, but I don't want to reveal it in a very direct way. So I could play an E minor chord, hit a C, and then move into the minor third. It's a little more subtle than doing this. So let's say I'm going to play a sad song. I'm going to start on E minor. I'm going to connect my harmony like this. Like I just give away the key right away. Like, oh, and I'm starting in an inversion too, which also sort of embeds the key. But let's do something like this instead. I'm going to start out and hit a C and then move into the B. So I'm going to play a fifth on my top hand. You see how that's like, it's way more, it's still super straightforward. You're still like, oh, we hit a minor third. It sounds sort of dark and sad, but we didn't start there. We didn't give it away right away. And the more ambiguous you are, this can go in the opposite direction where it becomes almost like scary music versus, especially if you use dissonant chords with a lot of ads or suspense, then you could get stuff that's like, no one knows where you are. There's like one extreme. The other extreme is like, you're just doing this. Sounds like a lot of pop stuff. So yeah, harmony is a huge element. That's sort of what goes into that element. So those are the major categories. So what I want you to do, my challenge to you, is to go into a beat. I want you to create 2 beats, and I want you to make them a minute long, maybe a little bit more. Give yourself about a minute though. That way you have some sense of at least a tiny structure. And then I want you to write down or even make a video explaining how you're using these elements. Maybe start out with like, I'm going to make a rhythmically focused beat, or I'm going to make a structurally focused beat. I want the structure to be just mega freaking solid. You're going to be paying attention to all these elements in any case, but pick one that you want to be the strongest and then explain in your video or to yourself if you don't feel like making videos, then explain what you did to achieve that hierarchy. Like, how did you diminish the sounds, or how did you use the sounds to enhance the rhythm? Maybe you picked sounds that were really rhythmic in nature, and so they went hand in hand. How did you keep melody from overpowering the sense of rhythm? And I want you to come to, now your beat might not sound that great if this is your first time going at it, because you might have a hard time finding a happy medium. That's fine. You should still make a video. You should still show your work and just say, hey, I'm learning. And because I do that all the time, I'll go through and I'll experiment. And those, just because your song didn't work out the first time, it just means you will discover relationships here. And as you discover more and more of these, your songwriting will improve a lot. And so that's what you're looking for. And as you can see, I show you a lot of pretty simple examples because honestly, it doesn't need to be complicated. People, you see these huge project files with like 50 things, or the one I really love is they'll take this, what I have here in 3. Someone will, I guarantee you, there is some guy out there who will do this in like 6 channels. Like, they'll just split it all up to make it look crazy. And I think it's so counterintuitive. I use a pattern workflow when I'm working. So I'll work in one pattern and have it playing. And then I'll drop that pattern in. There it all is. And you see my strings are here. And that line in the middle could have been a separate automation lane. I could have made it look scarier, but I don't. I keep things sort of condensed and they're all compact. And I do that because they're now together. So if I want to automate the volume on my strings or whatever, I can come in here and go to channel volume and draw it in right underneath the notes. They go together. So that's one reason I use this sometimes over I typically use this when I'm working with contact. That's something that I normally do. I'll automate things if I'm working with other plugs because it's more intuitive, and automation offers a couple other options. But this is great for working in contact because it's just integrated like that. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Share what you learned in the comments below. Subscribe, support me on Patreon. Lets me make these videos and continue to think of new ways to share things. And have a blessed day.